From Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Vayera, relatively speaking. If we look in the Parsha, God appears to Avraham, V'hu yoshev petach ha'oel, and Avraham is sitting. Now this flies in the face of every encounter with God we have every day. Shachris, Mincha, and Mariv. We always stand, the Amidah, even later in the Parsha. It says, Avraham odenu omed lifnei Hashem. That's the source of it, that Avraham was still standing before God. Why is Avraham sitting? So God says, he was really, Rashi says that he really he was sitting, he tried to stand up, and God said, no, sit down. This is a sign for your children, that when they sit in judgment as a court, I will stand with them. Elokim nitzav, as we say in the song of the day, the Shir Shel Yom, God stands in the judgment of man. But Rabbi Soloveitchik wondered, what does that have to do with this? Abraham's not sitting in judgment of anyone. And then he remembered the Gemara in Yuma, Taf Lamed He, Amud Beis. It says there in Yuma that if a person comes to God and let's say he's very poor, or he's very rich, or he's very wicked, so he could have excuses. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't live a good life because I was very poor. So God says to him, what about Hillel? Hillel was so poor. He was a big rabbi. He says, all right, well, another fellow comes in, he says, I was too rich. The temptation, the distraction, the activity, the worrying about all the different funds and monies, I couldn't do anything. So he says, no, but there's Rabbi Elazar ben Charsom. He was so wealthy, and he was a great rabbi too. So you have no excuse. What about the wicked who were tempted by their evil inclination, who are perhaps very, very handsome, and they have a lot of temptations? So he said, look at Yosef. Yosef had temptations. Yosef was a person who was so handsome, and yet look, Yosef overcame his temptations. So all these people have no excuse. And in the end, these people become the judges. Hillel, Rabbi Elazar, and Yosef they judge humanity. They judge the poor, the wealthy, and the wicked, as if to say to them, I'm sorry, you have no excuse. You lost in the judgment. You lost in the justice. So it turns out that Avraham is also a judge. How is Avraham a judge? Because what happened was, this is not just a visit to Avraham about visiting the sick. He had a Brit Milah. They came to visit him, and then then those same angels, they happened to go to Lot. No. Gavriel, the same same angel who overturned Sodom, came to see Avraham. Because he said, look, I'm going to go to Sodom and I'm going to see some wicked people. I understand that. And he witnessed terrible, horrific things that they tried to perpetrate on these guests of Lot. But the question is, can anyone overcome that? I mean, that's the way society is. That's the way life is these days. So there's nothing else you can do about it. So he says, wait a second, let me go see Avraham. So one angel came to tell Avraham he's having children. The other angel came to see, is it possible to be righteous in this kind of world? He saw Avraham. He saw it was possible. Then he went to Sodom and he said, wait a second. If Avraham can be righteous in proximity to Sodom, then Sodom should be able to do so as well. They couldn't. They are chayavim. They are obliged in the judgment. They have lost the judgment. Avraham is the judge. He's the one who obliges them to be punished for not being more like him. We had a similar concept when it came to last week's Parsha. We wondered, how could Avraham defeat all these enemies? He runs through the country as like it's nothing. It's just unbelievable. With 318 men, he's able to destroy 4 major powers from the north. The answer is, Vayerdefim ad chovah. He obliged everyone. Wherever he went, people just fell by the wayside because Avraham walking in proximity of someone, that makes everyone fall down. It's like the Isha Shunamit, when the prophet came to live in her house, she said, until you came here, I looked okay, but now, you've come here to remind God of my sin. You making me look bad. When a prophet lives in your house, then suddenly the son dies, things happen. You say, the proximity to the righteous, that's what brought the calamity. That's what she said, and there was some truth to it. When Abraham came in proximity to all these raiding nations, they just fell by the wayside. When the nations see the name of God on you, they fear, they tremble, they run away. Abraham fought his battle by the same method of being mechayev, by obliging others by the proximity just to him. One might argue that the same thing is true in two other biblical stories. The story of Noah, that the world, God said, the world is terrible. But Noah found favor in the eyes of God. So you say, that's wonderful. Noah saved the whole world. Look at it the other way. Noah ruined it for the whole world. And if there was no Noah, he'd say, look, everybody's bad. Kol adam kozev, everybody's evil, so what can you do? But since v'noach matzachen, since there was a Noah, it took everyone else under. That destroyed everyone else. That made a judgment against everyone else. It is possible, even in that world, to be a Noah. So that obliged everyone. And then the flip side with Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu, God turns to him and says, you're just like Noah. Everyone else is sinning. You're not sinning. You're so holy. You're being mechayev everyone else. You are obliging everyone to the death penalty because they are worshiping idols and you're not. So we're going to make you a nation. We'll destroy everyone else, just like Noah. And that'll be the story. But as we know, the story didn't end there. He argued that no, this is your people, and God, you've got to save these people. So Moshe didn't allow his righteousness to go out and judge everyone else. This idea, which we spoke of regarding people, is true of place as well. If you live, let's say, in Memphis, Tennessee, you live in Nashville, so then, you live a certain way. But when you live in the land of Israel, as we know from Parshat Kedoshim later on in Leviticus, if you live in the land of Israel, the holiness of the land spits you out. It doesn't tolerate certain things. We might argue the same with Sodom. It was not only the proximity to Abraham, but the proximity of the land of Israel. Being in the land of Israel, it obliges you to live on a different level. It's a symbol. Sodom is a symbol. The land of Israel will not tolerate this because such holiness cannot tolerate such evil. You think there's no one else evil like that in the whole world? No. It's just that in the land of Israel, in proximity to Abraham and in the land of Israel, this cannot be tolerated. Rabbi Soloveitchik said that this idea that there are people who can survive under the worst of circumstances, this creates what he called the 13th Ani Mamin, the 13th principle of faith, and that is, I believe with complete faith that the Torah can be observed anywhere on earth. You could be near Sodom, you could be in the world of the antediluvian world where it's only all going to be destroyed. You could be in America, you could be in Europe, you could be in Australia. The Torah is always applicable. There's always someone who can show the way that it can be done. And not only that, said Rabbi Soloveitchik, but not only can the person survive, they can actually influence others. In other words, Noah was a model that even in an evil world, you could be righteous. But Abraham was a model that in a wicked world, you know what you could do? You could not only save your own skin, you could also bring others, as the Rambam says, thousands of people to your commitments and to your worldview. It's possible. It's doable. If this is true, this is a scary thought that if Abraham in his world, proximity to Sodom, was able to bring so many people on board in the world of idolatry, what about us? What are we doing? Number one, to save ourselves, to not fall prey and say, well, in America, what can you do? In Memphis, what can you do? Number one. And number two, what are we doing to be like Abraham? To say, not only can I save myself, but I can save others too, can bring others close to God. What are we doing to bring others to the vision of Avraham Avinu? This is our talk about relatively speaking. Relatively speaking, we could run into trouble. Relatively speaking, Avraham made the people of Sodom look really bad. Our job is to do the best we can under the circumstances that we have. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth congregation for our discussion of Parashat Vayera. Join us each week for the discussion of the Parashah, various holidays, and the how-to videos as well. Thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.